Hello and welcome to PondHub with Tim. In this video I'll be showing you how to make hibernacula for your amphibians.
I really can't stay.
Baby, it's cold outside.
I've got to go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
It's a fairly chilly day towards the end of November, and I thought this was a good time of the year to remind people about how to make their gardens safe for amphibians for overwinter. In the UK, amphibians hibernate between November and February. That's when they're dormant. It may vary a little bit depending upon species and upon your local climate. But generally speaking, those are the months when the amphibians are going to be out of action and needing a safe place to rest. There are several different approaches to making good hibernation spots. Perhaps the easiest is just pick a place where you can let the leaves pile up and leave them undisturbed through to the spring. Now, I'm a little bit wary of leaving leaves lying around the garden, because leaves lying around the garden can end up as leaves in the pond, and that means I'm just going to have to take them out or they'll turn to sludge. But there are a few spots in the garden which are quite sheltered, which I think work perfectly as a place where you can leave the leaves lying. Now we've got a little sort of woodland walk along here, and we bank up the leaves under the hedging here, and these we will just leave through till March, and all kinds of things will be living in there and providing a safe wintering space. So piles of leaves, easiest thing in the world really. Working on very much the same principle, what you can do with leaves, you can also do with sticks and branches. And here, along the same walk, we've created a big pile of sort of medium-sized sticks and branches, and we will just leave this be through till the spring. The great thing about these is the amphibians will crawl in and crawl under, and loads of other animals and insects will use them as well. And if you're lucky, you might get hedgehogs, and those are also pretty awesome creatures. Now, if you want something which is perhaps a little bit more aesthetic than just having piles of garden rubbish, you can use logs to create edgings for paths. We've been doing that here, and some of these larger logs, what we've done is we've hollowed them out slightly and used them to plant ferns in, which I think overall is quite a nice effect. And the amphibians can get underneath and in between those logs and get themselves a nice, warm, wintry hiding place. Another idea you might consider is lying some cut logs down sideways and making a planter. So again, this is fairly simple. You lie the logs on the side, create a low wall, you put some compost in the middle, you plant that. This one's looking a bit scruffy at the moment. But the point is that the amphibians can move in between these gaps and find themselves a nice, comfy winter hideout. This is a large tree cross section which I've placed near the bottom pond. I refer to it as Toad Hall. I've placed this on sand. The reason being that that's soft for the toads to burrow into, and you can see where underneath things have been burrowing under there, and they can get in and create themselves a nice little home. This is a little micro pond that we have in the jungle, and you can see around part of the edge here. I've also piled up logs, and there's some leaves there as well to create another space. I'm imagining this would be used by frogs, because this is really a frog pond. And of course a compost heap, particularly if you're not going to be disturbing this throughout the winter and into the spring. You'll have lots of lovely compost, creates a great habitat and a space for things to crawl in and hide. We actually have banded grass snakes that breed in the garden, and they do like the compost heaps. Now, it's all very well for me to go on about leaving piles of leaves and logs and sticks lying around your garden. We're very lucky here, we have quite a lot of space, and also our gardening style suits a certain amount of messiness and wilderness. And that may not be the case for you. You may be wanting to be more economical with your space, and you may prefer a tidier and neater approach to your garden, in which case the solution is to go underground. So now I'll show you how to make an underground hibernacular for your amphibians. In order to make my underground hibernacular, I need a small hole. I've gone for about 20 centimeters, 8 inches deep. I'm going to need the earth from the hole to recover it. I'm going to need some broken bits of tile and slab. And I'm going to need something for the tunnels. Now I'm using an old piece of Hoover pipe, which I've cut split, and I've made sure to split it so that there are various heights. Right, now this is fairly simple. You just put your broken bits of pipe and rock into here quite roughly, and you're wanting to make sure there are spaces and gaps where the amphibians can crawl into. In terms of having gaps, these curved bits of pipe are quite good because they will create kind of natural caves which they can use. Now obviously this one is quite small. That's because I think the amphibians in this garden are already very well provided for, so I'm not sure they need lots of additional space, but you can easily make these bigger if you want to. Right, so having filled my hole with the broken tile and slab, I'm now just going to place some tunnels around the edge. I mentioned I've split these, as you can see there, to different heights, and this is so that they can be used by different creatures at different ages. So something that small is quite good for the very young froglets and the very young newts. Often in their first year out of the pond, they're going to need quite small spaces, whereas the larger ones are better. You know, you've got to think about the sort of large female toads and the large female great crested newts that we have here, and they're going to need a little bit more room, so you're wanting those to be able to get in. The beauty of using the Hoover pipes is that they're actually quite flexible, and you can place those under there so that they're not going to be buried with soil and just cut off. And then simple matter, just to pull your soil back on top. Now obviously what you've created here is a bit of a soakaway, so you can now think about how you might want to plant on top of this, and you can choose a hibernacular to plant for things which like well-drained soil. So you could put lavender or perhaps sedums or anything like that which will like a bit of drainage, making sure you leave the pipes open so that the amphibians can get their access. And there you have it. You can now plant that however you like. So there you have it, a range of places where your amphibians can safely hibernate. But there is one place that I haven't yet mentioned. Frogs in particular will sometimes hibernate at the bottom of the pond, where they'll breathe through their skin. It's very important that you consider ways to stop the surface of the pond freezing over completely, and how to keep the water oxygenated during the winter. I'll be looking at that in my next video.
Time for a sleep.